So as we look at what data is required to release a batch, a lot of the asset information is part of that, right? We also have the batch record, the production record, we have the release testing, we have all this other information. But this information, knowing that the assets are in a good state of operating condition, that they're valid, that they're validated, that they're calibrated, that they're all ready to go, is critical to ensuring this. In today's system, we have a human that goes through and reviews every single one of those assets and every one of those calibration reports to make sure that that equipment was in a validated state when it was running to make that drug. Tomorrow, that information should be in a CMMS that's tied into a holistic control strategy that then can allow essentially a computer to review this and just review by exception for human.
And that could be part of an ISO 55001 7.5 information requirement system, where it's spelled out ahead of time that this is what's going to happen, and there will only be occasional human overview, like you said, for exceptions.
Absolutely.
So the Bob Smith, the ISPE, International Society of Pharmaceutical Engineering, has established its guidelines on ISO 55000 that you helped establish. And you see that being tied into Pharma 4.0?
Yes, the nice thing is it's based on the ISO 55000 set of standards, but it provides industry-specific guidance. So it really, I think, will help considerably with the digital transformation. It's going to become so critical, I think, as we do this. The nice thing with like the BIMstorm model that you had there, since some of these or most of these facilities will be remote, and they'll have to have a centralized person probably looking at multiple facilities, they could basically view any of these assets, the process, where is the drug in the process. They could see all of that real time, live, through these information models that are developed through BIM. And with the information being transferred back and forth between BIM and the CMMS and the other systems, process control systems, building management systems, things like that, you now have everybody looking at the same information. And that's again where ISO 55000 comes in, where by having the framework and having a model that's consistent that you can use across multiple locations, I think that's really going to help this whole digital transformation, immensely.
And we've got two questions. The first one is from Rob. Nick Armstrong, I think this will be for you. How will the FDA review cycles apply to personalized medicines? Is personalized version approved and the personalization is just a modification? Or do you have any idea how that's going to work?
Yeah, so welcome to our dilemma. This is very new to the industry. The same amount of scrutiny that goes into non-personalized medication or bulk product, the same amount of scrutiny has to be applied to personalized medicine. It has an added complication of chain of custody. So you cannot mix up patient A and B. If you do that, there's disastrous results at the end. So to enable this, the second part of that is the personalized version approved and the non-personalized version approved. There's some, the initial process is approved through the FDA, but there's all types of release testing that occur. This digitization is really what's going to unlock that, because it takes people going through everything to review all of the paperwork, all the release testing as you go through it. To shorten that window from 6 to 12 weeks to 6 to 12 hours is really what I mentioned before of review by exception, right? We're going to have a central information system that will do most of our review for us. And then we will, the information system will tell us where we need to dive deeper into various areas, and we'll review by exception.
Excellent. Thank you very much. And very quickly, we have a question from Igor Starkov, who's been involved in BIMStorm since they began. Thank you for joining. And the question is about ISO 19650, which is a subset for information management. And how does that fit in with ISO 55000? That's a great question, because the management systems that are set up by ISO are set up so that they can interact with each other. So ISO 55001 7.5 says you shall have an information system. And your answer to that can be, we're going to use ISO 19650 as our guideline to meet the requirements of ISO 55000. And that's the same for risk management and continuous improvement. These are like Russian dolls of standards that can work together. So we're right at the end. Nick, would you like to do the sign off for us before Nick comes on to sign off? I'd like to thank our speakers, Nick Armstrong, Bob Smith, Mark Giuliani, and Nick Kissel. We have the most Nicks ever on our panel, and really appreciate what was done here today. And I hope this is just the beginning of a series of events where the ALN can help Pharma 4.0 achieve its goals.
If you guys want to, say some ending salutations, then I'll put up the organizational members slide.
Yeah, I guess
Well, this is Mark. Just wanted to thank everybody for having me participate. Look forward to working with ALN again in the future.
This is Bob Smith.
Yes,
Oh, go ahead, Mark. Go ahead, Nick. I mean,
well, yeah. To echo what Mark said, it was a pleasure participating today and working with Project Fame. So looking forward to continued opportunities.
Okay. Yeah, from the Project Fame side, we're just really getting this off the ground. We got a lot of work to do, but it's exciting to see what the capabilities are of the building information modeling, CMMS, all the different things that need to come together. And it'll be exciting if we can get this model to the point where we can use it as an example for the pharma industry. I think it will definitely help considerably. What you got, Mike?
I just did the timing all wrong. Thank you to Nick Kanoki. So there's a formal ending, and now we can go into a casual discussion because we've got another 30 minutes. My timing's all off because it started at 10:30 instead of 1. And well, I guess I just took all the pressure off us. Now we can, just roll up our sleeves and get down to, what this is going to really take. So
The best part is from here forward, we actually get to have an open dialogue about how to move this forward.
right. And the thing that I was feeling time crunched on, I would like Mark Giuliani and Nick Kissel to talk more about the transfer of information that they did and how that can accelerate these projects. Because if pharmaceutical companies are going to be doing multiple small batch manufacturing, there's going to be rapid fire. It's going to be like setting up a Jimmy John's franchise where you need to get into the market and penetrate the market before your competition does. And time to market is going to be critical. So Mark Giuliani, can you talk a little bit about what you've seen with these BIMStorm processes in other industries and how it might help the pharmaceutical industry?
Sure. Let me just kind of show, I think it's hard, having been to a number of BIMStorms, it's kind of hard to really understand the power of moving this data between an analytical system and a graphical system. So let me just show the audience a little bit of what I did last night. After Bob and I had talked, and he had explained to me some of the things that I needed to put in some of the spaces. And one of them was 80 freezers. So I dropped the 80 freezers in graphically so I could line them up, but that's not what they were called. The standard device or piece of equipment that was in there had a very long name that didn't resemble something as simple as pharmaceutical freezer. So I exported the information out using the software. Let me go to full screen. Let me stop sharing. I'll go to full screen so you can see everything. There, now I think you can see the whole screen now. So by utilizing this one window in the tool, I could export it to different tools. And I exported it to a spreadsheet that captured all the unique components, the FF&E, the windows and things like that. And then I was able to create this spreadsheet very quickly and then change the name of that piece of equipment that was the freezer to something simple like a freezer, so it would graphically show up. So once I did that and just changed all of these 80 devices to a freezer, I could then save this spreadsheet, go back into Common, or go back into the Enuma system, which we're using here. I'm not promoting it. It's the system that I use. And I could just import that very quickly back into here. And because everything has a separate ID, a machine ID, it knew right away to change all the names of these pieces of equipment here. And I need to actually go into the space, so let me do that. I've locked up the system. In
Well,
real
I'll
time,
say,
of course.
I'll say that I was
Click on
practicing,
here. Yeah. You click on here and the system comes up.
I was practicing with Mark at 5:30 Eastern, and those freezers were not there. So he was able to do that freezer, that room, and have it ready for this morning. And that's the exact type of thing that happens in design processes where suddenly things change and we need a room with 80 freezers and we need it for the meeting tomorrow.
So actually, that was human error. I was in the room up here instead of, but looking at the room down here. So now that I'm in the room, so it populated each one of these 80 devices within seconds with the appropriate name that I had chosen. So that's the power of doing this digitally, rather than doing it when I came into the industry on a drawing board with a parallel rule and having to erase all of that data that was done with a lead holder and replace it. And now that term can be checked in this spreadsheet that we just had up on the screen, and all the data can be normalized and repopulated back into the graphical system. And then that data can be exported into what Nick is using to further the project along and maintain the buildings. I don't know how Nick was able to incorporate it, but Nick, why don't you talk for a little bit about what you did with the data once I sent it off to you?
Yeah, that's a great, great question. So taking the data from that Excel template, we have import templates as well. And it's literally just, copy and paste to get that into the same format. And, as we talk about the open standards and communicating with different applications, we do have the APIs available that in theory, if there was a change to an asset, an MVP plant, or, the CMMS in general, we could pass that information, assuming that the API is available with our, other BIM applications. And, to touch on the design phase, that's really important, because one of the things that I see from a lot of the customers that we work with is that they struggle with data collection, right? So the fact that you have a working model of what that operation is supposed to look like, and can have that easily exported and imported into our system, that's really helpful, for commissioning and getting a site up and running. And I think going back to the whole standards component, making sure that you have standardized naming conventions and, understanding what's going to be reported on, when you're implementing a system like ours, that's going to be important, because that's going to help with the initial load and then the operational phase of using MVP plant. But pretty much what we're doing is we're taking that data, placing it into our import template, and then again, we can export that, using reports, or we can export it using APIs, which are short for application programming interfaces.
So Nick Armstrong and Bob Smith, can you talk about how this accelerated process not only will help with Pharma 4.0, but just in general?
Sorry. So in general, as far as, during design build, setting this up, one of the things that we talk about frequently is speed to market. Okay. Everyone, let's take the current pandemic response that we have now. There are, the last time I counted, 14 vaccines in the work, and one of them is going to win out, right? It's not only that's development of the science, but they also have to be able to manufacture that. They have to get up and running. This enables that speed to market. Okay. If I'm developing a drug for hemophilia, I probably have 6 other competitors out there developing a drug for hemophilia. The FDA will not approve your drug just because you're cheaper. You have to be better. So we frequently talk about better than the Beatles. Okay. So if your competitor beats you to market and you have this similar technology, you don't get to market. You don't get a drug to patients. Okay. Unless you can demonstrate concretely that your drug is absolutely better than your competitors, you cannot take them out of market and put yours in. So speed to market is absolutely critical. And this is part of what enables that is the build, installation, validation. Validation is a huge part of getting a facility up and running. I have done this in consumer goods, and we've installed entire filling lines, fully validated up and running in 6 months. I've done the same job in pharma, and it's taken 4 years. And that's not unusual to see that happen. So accelerating that path, a lot of this information is part of that path.
Bob Smith, CAI is using some advanced virtual augmentation and virtual reality tools. Can you talk about how that is going to, that we're talking about?
Actually, I think Nick Armstrong has been the one that's kind of pioneered some of our, is HMT1 is what we've kind of dealt with a little bit, Nick, and
Yeah.
what's your vision from what you're seeing on that?
So we're in the beginning stages of using the HMT1. It's a RealWear. It's a piece of hardware that uses augmented reality, right? So it puts things in your field of view that you'll be able to see. With this technology, we've been able to really do 2 things, and I see this going further in the future in other ways. Number one is remote expert. So I don't know anything. I can go into the field, or I know very little. I'm a junior person. I can go into the field, and Bob Smith can be sitting in Idaho, where he currently is, and help direct me, draw on my screen, help me understand the situation. He sees what I'm seeing. He hears what I'm hearing, and he can give me that expert advice on what we're doing. Number 2 is actually field execution. Okay. And this is a little bit of in its infancy, but I see this coming by fairly quickly. As we're going through to execute various field verification and testing and going out there and executing this stuff, these tests now come up as scripts in your field of view. You will verify them in real time using a biometric thumbprint on your hip belt, right? That's connected through your HMT1. That's your verification as you're going through. Validation in the pharmaceutical business right now is highly paper driven. On a recent project that I was on, we filled 5 mobile trailers from front to back with paperwork. And that will go away. And this will, the technology and whatnot that we'll go to, in the future, where I see this going is, and it's a very simple case study. I'm a mechanic. I need to go out and rebuild this pump. I haven't rebuilt this pump in 3 years. I don't remember. Okay. I'm out in the field. I've got my parts with me. I can watch a quick video on my AR headset. I can actually go into there and manipulate a 3D model of the pump and rebuild a virtual pump and then execute the actual thing in the field. That's really where I see this technology going in the future. So we're getting there. It's a slow beast sometimes.
Yes, all the regulations, rightly so, make it challenging to get the proper paperwork and approvals. And so there's going to need to be on the FDA side some type of ability to handle the digital approval process. The government is going to have to step up also. Is that right?
Agreed. And so when we've been in discussions with the FDA on these pieces, they're all for it. They, if you can demonstrate a sufficient scientific knowledge of your process as you're going forward, if you can demonstrate control of your process, that's what I really see this effort is. This is really control, where companies get in trouble is when the FDA comes in to do the regulatory inspections and they start seeing a lack of control. Because as a operational model, pharmaceutical companies self-regulate. We self-test, we self-regulate, we do everything. Every couple of years, the FDA or a different regulatory body comes in and inspects our quality system, inspects our self-regulating mechanism to make sure that we're doing it right. But every batch doesn't go to the FDA for release testing and then gets released. Right. So they're all about these real-time release testings and getting a speed to market. It's actually more of a challenge within industry to be able to move that faster. It's one of the areas where I actually see the FDA at the forefront of it.
Okay, that's good to know.
Which is great.
Yeah. So, Mark Giuliani, the BIM-storm processes have been demonstrated, more than adequately in healthcare and in aerospace and in education and other areas. How do you see the ability to demonstrate these processes helping the pharmaceutical industry?
Well, I think it's much like it is with any other industry. The data is sometimes worth more than the assets themselves. And by enabling a team to come together and work with an owner, work with the user groups, and sit in something that we call a concept design workshop and be able to facilitate with those people and collaborate with them and come up with a list of spaces and work on the layouts of those spaces and input that data into some sort of worksheet that can then be incorporated into a space planning program and exported into a building information modeling program. It really reduces the amount of effort of not only putting in the data multiple times, but reusing that original data, those terms. It helps provide clean data and normalized data throughout the process. In the past, it was not uncommon to almost re-enter everything by hand through the process to get it from one computer system to another computer system. So just, within the past 10 years, this has really sped up the process by enabling people to use their time more efficiently, really be able to spend more time helping the customer and get a better return on investment, because the design time and the kind of creating a spirit of place, creating an environment that people want to come to and want to work in, and being able to utilize that time for just a safer environment in today's day and age, focus on mechanical systems and clean air and fresh air and keeping people safe from, COVID and those things and distancing. But all of the technology that we're using and displaying today really provides owners with a higher return on investment. It allows designers to focus more on design and less on the process, and creates an overall holistically a better project.
Thank you, Mark. And I'm remiss in not announcing earlier that Mark is our newest ALN Senior Fellow. Thank you also for plugging the Asset Leadership Thursday at 4 event with your background screen. That's appreciated. And then Bob Smith, I wanted to ask you how you think the pharmaceutical asset information management can build up slowly in the asset leadership network and spread out into the pharmaceutical industry.
I think the power of this is going to be the information. Everybody's seeing the same information. That's one of the issues we have now, is getting to, the source of truth, or whatever you want to call it. But it's, where is this information? How do I get my hands on it? This really will show the power of being able to bring everything together in a nice graphical presentation, and it anywhere at any time you can see in real time what's going on, what's happening. So I think working with ALN and CDG, BIMStorm, Mark, everybody, if we can get this model together at ALN, then we can now take it. CAI has very strong ties to the International Society for Pharmaceutical Engineering, so that's going to be a great resource, I think, to, once we have a good working model, a concept, take it to them. We can work, with them to try to push this out throughout the pharmaceutical industry, and just really demonstrate what can be done, how it can be done, and the power behind it.
Well, the Asset Leadership Network would be very honored to present to the International Society of Pharmaceutical Engineering, and perhaps even to the FDA, Nick, if it's helpful to show what's possible.
Yeah, what I was going to add to that is, as the Asset Leadership Network is working to, further adoption of ISO 55000 practices at the federal level, the FDA is part of that, right? The FDA is a part of Health and Human Services. So as it becomes more prevalent within the federal government, now the FDA, when they're going in on their regulatory inspections, are asking about ISO 55000 elements. They're asking about asset management systems. Many clients that we work with, some of them won't do anything until they deprioritize things but if a regulator asks about it, they will move mountains to make it happen. So a lot of the efforts the Asset Leadership Network is doing from the federal level is actually going to help bring the industry further into the future, which I'm excited about.
To that point, our first event in this series included a presentation from the Government Accountability Office, which just 2 weeks ago published a report on the FDA. And the Government Accountability Office found that the FDA was lacking in understanding its own assets, and suggested that an asset management system be used. The FDA agreed, and basically what that means is that the FDA is going to start getting familiar with the ISO 55000 management system for asset management. And perhaps FAME can make a presentation to the FDA and help them understand ISO 55000 and how it works with these other systems in order to dramatically improve mission success.
No, that's actually a really great point. I do some training of FDA inspectors actually at my alma mater. They train junior inspectors all the time, and asset management is one thing we talk about it. So maybe that's an opportunity to partner with Asset Leadership Network as well on how do we, these folks are going to be the ones in the plants doing the inspections. The more they know, the better off our clients will be.
Well, we have ALN CEO Jim Dieter on the call with us, and I think it's appropriate now to ask Jim how he sees this FAME and our connections through the GAO might help us connect to the FDA and ignite some synergies.
Oh, hey, Mike, thanks. I just put a chat comment in along that line. First, I'd like to say that this is a great example of how we can leverage and extend the reach of the ALN, not for the sake of the ALN, but for the sake of the mission that we're all interested in, which is better managing assets and seeing those assets provide value to their organizations and help those organizations achieve their mission and objectives. And that really requires groups like this to coalesce in specific sectors or around specific topics and leverage the infrastructure that's been constructed and is in place and continues to grow daily. It seems in this great October event, just amazing information that we can all share and learn from other sectors and other leaders. And I think it's a uniquely, in the world of asset management, it's kind of uniquely North American or American view and opportunity is this cross-sector discussion. Again, and as I've said other times, in a lot of other countries, it's one area that's focused on asset management, and they're not covering all types of assets in all sectors. But I think in the U.S., we see this arising in just an array of sectors, and the ALN and those involved have an opportunity to spread that to their sectors, but then in also events like this, very importantly, share their knowledge and their understanding with others, and how that can be then adopted and applied in other sectors. Really had my mind going during this whole model and whole discussion. Of the pieces of this that I can see personally are easily transferable to areas that I've am working in currently. So thanks everybody for the great presentation.
Yes, Jim, that's a very good point. And I think the strength of what we're doing here with FAME resides in the fact that we've done similar efforts in other industries. And we can point to what's been done in our outreaches to the healthcare industry and the aviation industry. So it's a strength to actually be serving multiple sectors, because much of the core information, the core processes are the same. Use ISO 55000, have your data entered once and securely transferred frequently. Visualize your assets. All these things are similar that can be used over and over in multiple industries. So now we are winding down to the end of the actual 90-minute event, and I would like to give everybody a chance to say a final word before leaving. And again, I thank everybody for participation. I'm very excited about where this is going. Bob Smith?
All right, just want to thank everybody for the opportunity. Pretty excited about the FAME process. It'd be interesting to see where this goes. Appreciate it.
Nick Armstrong?
Yeah, reiterating what Bob said, I really appreciate all the effort on this team and getting us to this point. And I think, one of the things to keep in mind is in pharma, one of the unique factors of pharma is the things that we do now improves patients' lives, right? So all these efforts, all the stuff that's going in is all about, making sure that patients improving their quality of life. So putting that in perspective.
Nick Kissel?
Yeah, it was a pleasure working with everybody. And as everyone has said, it's going to be interesting to see how the project proceeds. But looking forward to participating and seeing how we can provide value to pharmaceutical customers and asset management in general.
Excellent. Mark Giuliani, our most recent ALN Senior Fellow.
Well, thank you for making me an ALN Senior Fellow. And it was great working with everybody on this panel. Thanks for everyone's hard work. And hopefully it was helpful to people out in the audience to see us take this data from concept through occupancy.
Mark, I don't want to speak for the audience, but it was incredibly helpful to me, having kind of heard and seen some of this stuff before, but your display really helped me conceptualize it. So thank you for that. And thank you all for the presentation again. And before we close here, I just want to thank our organizational members, because as always, this wouldn't be possible to go on without their support. And with that, I think we're done here. Thank you guys for being here. See you next time.
All right.